With a yo-ho-ho, it's TaleOfTheToaster. Welcome to another video, both about Inazuma 11 and about Blue Lock at the same time. It's finally time to bring my two favourite football anime together into a single video. Sorry to any Captain Tsubasa fans who aren't wanted to see it in my top two football anime. So for this topic, I basically want to bring the best of both worlds together. Essentially, Inazuma 11 is a series that I prefer for its long-standing character building and its array of fun, creative, special moves, while Blue Lock is generally better at football, you know, showing the sport in action, making it realistic, and also its own very unique style of character development and scenarios. But I thought, what if the Blue Lock characters, with all of their actual footballing technique and skill, had some of the fantastical, over-the-top special moves of the Inazuma 11 series. So, I'm going to go through every main character in Blue Lock Season 1 and give them what I think is their most fitting move from Inazuma 11. Obviously, every character in Blue Lock is a striker by position, so I could stick to just shots for all of the moves, but in some cases I have gone with a midfielding or a blocking move. But just know that, you know, if they were in Inazuma 11, they'd have at least 4 moves, and at least one of them's going to be a shooting move. Up first, though, will be Isagi, and oddly enough, he's kind of one of the hardest ones to pick a move for, despite being the main character with so much development. The thing is, his main thing when it comes to scoring goals is his direct shot, where someone passes to him and then he immediately boots it into the back of the net with no hesitation. He's, you know, that's not necessarily his biggest aspect, but his biggest aspect is just his spatial awareness and tactical genius and all of that, which doesn't really translate to a move, more a play style. If you want to give him a special move, it has to be some kind of direct shot. Unfortunately, Inazuma doesn't really have many of those, which surprised me. I certainly went on the look for them, but, you know, ones like Black Dawn and Dragon Tornado are technically direct shots where someone kicks the ball first and then they follow it up with a completely unrelated special move. That's just not really the vibe, especially the weirdest one is Fortissimo Foot. That's a direct shot in Inazuma 11, but none of these are really that fitting for Isagi. I want it to just be a move where the ball is given to him and he immediately boots it. I kind of narrowed this down to 2. The first one I was thinking was Triple Threat, also known as Evolution, which is a 3-player shot, which is a bit over the top. You only really need 2, but it is a case of Ricardo and Victor started the move and then immediately gave it to Arian for an immediate deflection into the goal, although that move was in effect Zephyr shot, so Isagi's running still isn't one of his main things. So in the end, I kind of settled on a bit of a limp finish, and I said that Isagi's move would be Triple Boost. It's still 3 players, I would only ideally want it to be 2 players, but it is a long shot where at its finest, you have 1 player, they kick to another, and then they kick to the 3rd player who direct shoots it into the back of the net. It's one of my favourite moves from a gameplay perspective. I loved using it in Inazuma 2 and 3, so Isagi's going to have it because it's the closest thing to a direct shot I can think of. But let me know in the comments if you can think of a more appropriate direct shot for Isagi. His bestie Bachira, meanwhile, is going to be the first character where I don't actually give him a shoot. His main thing is dribbling, so if he were an Inazuma 11 character, he would probably be a midfielder rather than a striker, or at least something like Xavier Schiller, where he's a forward who's very focused on dribbling, which is exactly what he is. But he can still have a dribbling move. I guess I'm thinking of Zigzag Zoom, which was not a dribbling move, but it just functioned like one. But I will give Bachira one. To me, when you think of skillful dribbling in terms of Inazuma moves, the one that comes to mind for me the most is Super Elastico from the original Brazil team. The kind of ball control and just technical skill that you need to do something like that is something you'd only really see from Bachira in Blue Lock. Now, the easiest one to come up with of all, Chigiri. Very simple. He's a running guy. He's going to have a running move. I had 2 options. The first one would be Dash Accelerator as a dribbling move, which he obviously does use his running for dribbling purposes. But at the end of the day, he is a striker, so I think you might as well give him the classic running special move. and that would be Zephyr Shot from Aria and Sherwind, which is kind of why I didn't want Isagi to have triple threat, because that's at that point taking Chigiri's move as we've reassigned it. Running in the 90s, it belongs to Chigiri. He runs, he kicks the ball. Now my Kunigami manga, I won't throw it this time like I did in the previous video, but he is the superhero of the show. His whole thing is being a hero. So there must be plenty to pull from Inazuma. I actually looked at the level up moveset of the otaku character called Hero, and I immediately got some ideas. So the one I had in mind before reading that page was Dynamite Shot, the one where you do the big backflip, kick the ball into the back of the net and it explodes without even looking at it. That's very superhero-esque and just one of my favourite moves in general. So that could work as a low-level move for Kunigami. But the other option, I saw that Hero from Otaku had a very generously awarded move. It's like when Willy Glass can learn God Knows in the Inazuma games. They also said that Hero could have the Earth, the final move from Inazuma 11 2, and later has the Earth Infinity and Go Galaxy. Would this be a bit over the top for Kunigami? Yes, but I think you see it as like an alternate timeline kind of thing. You can have Grenade Shot on him at low levels, and then if he's able to clear Blue Lock, he's the one that learns the Earth. Then you've got poor old Iemon, our goalkeeper, who is not meant to be a goalkeeper. As you know, he's a forward like everyone else, but he's only ever played in goal, and therefore eventually he's going to have a bit of a Ricardo Einsatz moment where he eventually learns a goalkeeping move, but it should be something simple. I don't want it to be like God Hand, even though it's an early, you learn this and it's low power, because he never really did any catches in the show. It was always punches to deflect the ball away from the net. And I think, therefore, the best one you can choose is Fireball Knuckle, which Mark pretty much learns by accident in Season 1. After he's already done the God Hand at least once, he simply needs to punch the ball away from the goal, which Iemon does at some point, and it turns into a special move. His fist's on fire, and he does it. Or he could have a Fire Iemonade. So Kuon's main specialty is his jumping height, so therefore something like Jumping Jack makes a lot of sense. He was more of a headerer than a jump up and kick it type thing, but the guy's a snake. I'm giving him Sidewinder. Gurimu Igarashi is really easy. You give him Kung Fu fighting or you give him Kung Fu header. No, nothing more needs to be said. One of my favourite side characters in Naruhaya is next, and his specialty is getting in behind the enemy to take the ball from where they cannot see it. What Inazuma 11 move does that remind you of? If you said ambush, you were right. One of the best, funniest moves in history gets to go to one of my favourite characters, and it's genuinely completely fitting. You could maybe give him one that's a bit more subtle to give him, a bit of respect, but no, I'm giving him ambush. And then his mate Imamura Yudai, who cares, Comet Shot. Gagamaru Gin is a really tough one, actually, because all of his goals were very unique. He had the big diving header, and most famously, he had a scorpion kick at one point, where you just jump up in the air and then hit the ball with the back of your feet. And Inazuma has never actually done this, which I think is a fascinating opportunity for Victory Road to just have a scorpion kick based move. Like they put bicycle blade in at one point just to have a bicycle shoot. Let's have a scorpion kick next, so you can make it actually scorpion themed. Because apart from the stinger, there's not really any scorpion moves. And, he's not meant to be thematically based on a scorpion. He just did a scorpion kick. The closest I can honestly think of to the motion is Mermaid's Tail, which I'm not going to give him. It does involve getting a foot behind the ball, but it's not in any way fitting. You could also tap into his whole eating with his hand thing and give him, holograb. But I just kind of, in the end, picked a no-thoughts, cool-looking header move to reference his other big goal. So I gave him Brutal Head from Buddy Fury. So the last member of the team would be Jingo Raichi, and he would definitely want to have a shooting special move. And that's exactly why he's not getting one. I'm giving him Runaway Train to reference his very persistent defending. It's another case where he'd spend the whole season trying to get a shooting move, and then he ends up with a defensive move after he's been so focused on stealing the ball back from other players to go and do a shooting move. He ends up getting Runaway Train simply by chasing after someone. So that's it for everyone on Team Z, so now we've got pretty much just as many characters from outside Team Z, starting with the characters that Isagi teams up with in the second half, like Barou. If you see this move with all of the red outlines and his big butch personality, and he's going to score the goals and threaten to kill everyone along the way, I can only think of one thing, and this is actually what inspired the whole video, because this moment from the anime really made me think of Zanark from Inazuma 11 Go Chrono Stones, and especially his move, Disaster Break. I feel like Blue Lock Season 1 happened without a single special move, except for Barou's goal in the 4-a-side. He 100% did Disaster Break, and that's awesome. Of course, the main teammate in that instance was Nagi, but he's another really hard one, because just like Gin, you don't have a scorpion kick. Nagi's main thing is ball control, where the ball's in the air, he can rest it on his foot and then bring it down and then just do whatever he wants with it from that. But there aren't too many examples of that, mainly because you can just use the elements in Inazuma. You don't need to bring the ball down with your foot when you can just bring it down with a gust of wind or a load of ice or something. You can simply go above and beyond. But Nagi's technique is really, really fun to watch in the show, and they could definitely come up with a really cool original move for him. But to pull from what already exists, I struggled a lot. One thing that I could never get off the back of my mind was Frosticle. I don't think he necessarily needs an ice-themed move. He's not in any way ice-themed, but you definitely do spin in circles while controlling the ball on the end of your foot. You could also take ball control a bit more imaginatively and give him a dribbling move like Guided Collide, for example, one of the offense commands, where it is so much about controlling the ball it's actually magnetically stuck to your feet and then you go and ride on it. I do think, though, ultimately that he deserves a shooting move, and this isn't especially fitting, and I would like some more suggestions in the comments for something more appropriate, but I ended up giving him Maximum Circus, the shooting move that Caleb Stonewall uses in Orion, partly because I love that move and I forgot it exists until I was doing the research for this video, but it definitely opens with a kind of kick flip to get the ball up into the air, the type of which I have seen Nagi do in the anime, and then just gives it a multicoloured, fun blast. And, you know, he's always playing games on his mobile phone and just trying to entertain himself. I feel like it taps into that entertainment factor of his. He doesn't want to get bored, so he brings the Maximum Circus to the field. His teammate then, Reo, I had an idea pretty quickly and I stuck with it. Reo doesn't really play by himself. He's always about setting up his main three, be that Chigiri and Kunigami, or be it Nagi and Zantetsu. He's always in a group of three, and without those people to rely on, he kind of flounders. So I thought, 3-player shooting move, purple hair, he's having Emperor Penguin number 3. Zantetsu, meanwhile, his full name is Tsurugi Zantetsu, so he needs a special move from Tsurugi, Victor Blade. He would therefore look at Victor's moveset and pick the one that looks the coolest to perform, the flashiest, while still actually having sword in the name. So it's Bicycle Sword that he does to do a little kickflip and then not look at the ball as it travels to the goal. The Wanima Brothers weirdly had the same problem as Isagi, where I wanted to give them a 2-player move, and then the only real fitting option was a 3-player move instead. The idea of twins in football is something that every football anime has tapped into. Captain Tsubasa did it first. Blue Lock's Wanima Brothers are clearly inspired by them. But Inazuma decided to make it different, and their biggest example of a pair of twins would actually be the triplets of Kirkwood. And even though it's not accurate, they would need a third person to do it. I can't unsee the Wanima Brothers doing Triangle Z. Personality-wise, it's totally fitting for them, and they do need something gimmicky and twinsy like that, even if it means somehow convincing a third person to get involved. Especially because Inazuma eventually does do an actual pair of twins, but it's Gandarez and Ryugel from Inazuma Go Galaxy, and I don't think Scream of Eden is quite the correct choice. Then again though, it does tap into the secondary Wanima Brothers whole thing of not talking until his younger brother had left him. Maybe he would do the Scream thing and then the younger one does the actual shot. It's not a balanced move, but you know, maybe it works a bit better than I thought. From the team before them, you also had Niko, who I remembered solely as Joker from Persona 5 when I didn't know his name. So as a reference to Persona 5, I'm giving him Ephemeral Boost. Sorry. We'll see more of you in Season 2 and then pick something more appropriate. From the top 3 then. First we've got Tokimitsu, and somebody left me a YouTube comment in my previous BLUELOCK video telling me the reason he reminds me so much of Darren LeChance is because they've got the same voice. I don't know how I missed that, but yeah, they've literally got the same voice actor. So I'd love to give him Mugen the Hand as a tribute, but no, his whole thing is being big and bulky and defending, well, dribbling past people because he's physically unstoppable. He's gonna have power charge, essentially. It could be something even more dramatic like Road Roller, but power charge is literally what he does in BLUELOCK. His teammate Aryu, it has to be something glam. It depends how jokey you want to go with that. You could go for something genuinely quite stylish as an actual threatening shooting move. It could just be very pretty and feminine like Butterfly Dream. Or it could be a complete joke like Fancy Footwork. Or the one I just can't unsee for some reason. With his tall figure and his ability to get the ball out of the air, why do I see him doing Acrobat Bomber? I can't explain this properly, but I also just can't force myself to write anything else. Finally, their big boss is Rin, and the way I see it, if you're trying to put Rin into Inazuma 11, he's like the guy, you know, he's the strongest striker with the strongest shot. But thematically, he also doesn't have that much going on to derive from. You know, you've got plenty of big, strong Inazuma final bosses, but they've still got a theme. Like, Ozrock was a final boss, but he needed a space-themed move. When I'm thinking of times where Inazuma has tried to have a this is the best footballer ever type character with no actual theme around them, the one I think of is Hidetoshi Nakata, based on the real-life football goat of Japan. They put him in Inazuma, and they know that because he's a real footballer, he doesn't necessarily have a visual theme to tap into. So they gave him Brave Shot, which can be summarised as Big Shot, go brrr, and therefore probably belongs to Rin as well. But that's pretty much it for the Season 1 characters. You could pick Itoshi Sai, who's a Season 2 character mainly, but it is Rin's brother. He'd just have the best dribbling move in the series, something like Format Disc or Blue Stardust or whatever. And a final Season 2 character we're all at this point pretty familiar with, at least the design of Shido Ryusei, and he's got Ryusei in his name. He's having Ryusei Blade, he's having Meteor Blade. But that will be all. Maybe we can come back to this idea in Season 2, who knows, but for now, let me know in the comments if you've got any better ideas for moves to give to the BLUELOCK characters, and I'll let you know if I like them more than what I said in the video, or maybe you've got some other minor characters to suggest for. Either way, leave a comment, let's keep talking about BLUELOCK in the off-season, and let's keep talking about Inazuma 11. TTFN.